FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Bill, as you read the kids who were in the street protesting, how much of it was relatively sophisticated ideology? They weren't just rejecting the straight-laced lives of their parents, but the whole notion, the whole Cold War notion that communism was bad, we were good. And how much of it was just kind of naivete, romanticization of the commies, and so on?
Well, you've asked the hard questions. I mean, the fact is that there was a kind of a listlessness in the 60s, and that listlessness called for a kind of a masturbatory relief. People wanted to find if they could go ahead and get their kicks in some way that they hadn't been getting them, and the more so if they could wed them to some ideal. In fact, what it was primarily self-concern and an attempt to cast a noble perspective on what it is that you were up to.
You were engaged in narcissism,
I think
Christopher?
I'll have to quarrel literally as well as metaphorically with Mr. Buckley's characterization of it as masturbatory. Actually, it was quite celebrated for going the distance. Perhaps one of the great things about it was that it was the first generation, or perhaps one of the less great things about it, but at any rate one of the true things about it, one of the first generations to take the separation of sex and procreation for granted, which I think led to a great deal of jealousy, incidentally, not to say envy, among preceding generations.
The pill came into wide use just about then.
I think it might be worth making a distinction between being, as it were, a 68er, or soixante-huitard, as the more pretentious of us call ourselves, and a 60s person, because anyone born in the right boom bracket can claim to have been a 60s person. And the way it's all represented now retrospectively, airbrushed and rewritten, is beads, caftans, exactly as Mr. Buckley says, make love, not war, Woodstock Nation, all that. Now that was sort of common generationally, as common as, say, James Dean had been a bit earlier. But what we're talking about, I believe, is the 60s left. In other words, the attempt to block what we thought of, correctly in my view still, as an imperialist and aggressive and unjust war.